Food is fuel for your body, your mind, and definitely your sport. But let's face it, nutrition is confusing, and the expectations on girls and women to be thin and have a six-pack are exhausting. If you've ever been confused about nutrition, frustrated with your body, obsessed with eating healthy or feeling guilty when you don't, underate, overate, or overtrained and overwhelmed with all the pressure, then this podcast is for you. Nutrition can be easy. You can take control of it, but it might start with letting go of control by asking the experts and making a change. I'm Lindsey Elizabeth Cortes, sports dietitian, entrepreneur, lifelong athlete, mom, and host of the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast, where I empower female athletes to overcome nutrition concerns and perform at their highest level, to stop being confused by all the mixed or harmful messages, and finally have confidence in nourishing your body as a fierce, fit, and fueled female athlete. Follow, like, subscribe, share, and send to a female athlete in need, and head to lindseycortes.com for more content, all curated specifically for female athlete nutrition. Did you know the average woman spends 7 years of her life dealing with period pain? WaveBye believes it's time to get those years back. Founded by an OBGYN, WaveBye is the first science-backed solution that regulates menstrual cycle and reduces period pain before it even starts. WaveBye has 3 products. By Irregularity from WaveBye is designed to help your cycle find its rhythm again. Packed with clinically studied nutrients like inositol, magnesium, and chasteberry, By Irregularity supports healthy ovulation, hormone balance, and smoother, more predictable cycles without prescription or hormones. By Cramps and By Bad Cramps are the proactive premenstrual products that target the prostaglandin messengers that cause cramps and heavy bleeding, so your life doesn't have to stop every month. Think of it as the new Mydlo, backed by science, built by women, and designed to keep you feeling like yourself. Join the thousands who have already said it's absolutely life-changing, including myself. I've been taking this product every day for nearly 6 months. I take By Irregularity and By Cramps, and it has absolutely reduced my cramping and regulated my cycle. It is super predictable. So head to waveby.co and use the code Lindsey Cortes for 10% off. Say bye to irregular or painful cycles and hi to your true rhythm. Because when your cycle's in sync, everything else just flows. Lindsey Cortes for 10% off your WaveBye purchase. Hey fans and listeners, it's Lindsey Elizabeth Cortes, registered dietitian, sports dietitian. My guest today is Dr. Demetra Mydlo. Dr. Deme, as she goes by, is a chiropractor, former educator, coach, and lifelong athlete whose personal and professional experiences inform her passion for health and wellness. Born in Detroit and raised in Kingsville, Ontario, Canada, Dr. Deme later earned a degree in kinesiology from Wayne State University, and a Doctor of Chiropractic degree from Parker University. Now based in Dallas, Texas, she lives with her son and works closely with patients to support their healing journey as she specializes in prenatal, postpartum, pediatric, and sports chiropractic care. In her debut memoir, she candidly explores the often overlooked realities of eating disorders among female athletes. Dr. Deme shares her own journey and sheds light on the often hidden struggles of female athletes facing eating disorders, aiming to inspire awareness, compassion, and change. Deme, thanks you so much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
So just to tell our listeners, we connected through email last spring, so about 6 months ago. And you told me you were writing this book. It's about to be published, and it was a memoir, as you mentioned. And you sent it over to me in its almost final draft, I think. So I got to read it, sneak peek, and ended up writing a little, what do they call it? Like a
little endorsement.
A little endorsement to it. Yeah. And I just felt, I just think we need more of these books out there. It's a powerful story, your own story of being a female athlete and your experiences with an eating disorder. And we won't give away the whole book because what we want readers or listeners to do is go read it, become readers of the book. So it's available now. You mentioned, can you tell us more about the name of the book, where people can find it, just to give them the information up front?
Yeah, absolutely. The book is called Hustling for Worthiness. through sport and an eating disorder, The Weight of Winning. And it details, I would say I struggled for a little over 20 years with a known eating disorder, but it kind of goes to my roots of childhood and hindsight, how you can look back and see how these things develop. But I would say most of my life, I was in a pretty strong denial, which is pretty common with
Mhm.
eating disorders. And I've always enjoyed writing, always thought about writing a book. And so I think well into the recovery process, the idea crossed my mind, and then my girlfriend had suggested it. And so just kind of sort of started and then couldn't really stop. And it really ended up being a extremely therapeutic process for me. I really think completing the book almost felt like real recovery for me. I think even when
Mm.
I started writing it, I thought about I thought about how I would finish it, and almost, I think a lot of people, eating disorders recovery is not linear. And I think when I started, I thought, that I would write from the perspective of someone who felt like they weren't in complete recovery, which I had never read anything like that. And so almost to
Did
say like, you know, I don't know where, if it ends, and I sort of somehow, throughout it really started to think like, what, I really do feel in recovery, because of this or that. But yeah, most importantly was to share the story, because I think eating disorders hide so well. I think they're so misunderstood, and especially with in sports, males and females. But I think there's a lot of myths and beliefs that easily contribute to eating disorders developing in sport. So, and thirdly, I think another reason that I wanted to write it was, I had so much shame and embarrassment and all of that goes along with having an eating disorder, that at first I wasn't brave enough to seek counseling or help. And the first place I turned to were books. Could I find a book
Mhm.
to help me? So yeah, so 15 years ago, there weren't all these podcasts, there weren't all this awareness and social media and books. And so that was one of the first things I looked for.
Yeah. And as much as I love podcasts and participate in them myself and host one, there's something more powerful. I don't want to say more powerful, but very powerful about reading the whole book. So I just want listeners, even if you listen to this conversation with Deme today and you love it and you feel like, oh, I got it. I got her story. There's so much more in the book. There's so much more detail. You're really, and this is the power of writing and reading, is like you line by line, you're living through that story with you. And I just really want to encourage people to actually read it. And what I think is really nice about your book too, maybe different from podcasts or blogs online, where you kind of read about an eating disorder. You certainly, in the beginning of your book, include some statistics that are necessary, just to kind of learn what is an eating disorder, who has it, blah, blah, blah. Or I forget if that's in the beginning, but it's somewhere in there. You have some stats. But more importantly than that, it is a memoir, it is your story. And when we read and hear about other people's stories, we can see so much of ourselves in there and draw those parallels. And that's where I think a lot of like healing, more compassion comes. Like you mentioned, you had a lot of shame and guilt. And then if somebody else is feeling that shame and guilt, but then reading and your story and then kind of relates to you and feels like it really helps to know, oh, I'm not alone. Somebody else went through this. And so that's what's more powerful than just reading a blog about an eating disorder or about recovery. And it's like, no, this is the story of a real person and the real journey.
Absolutely. I think the greatest feedback I've gotten from the book is from people who have read it and said, I'm not an athlete. I don't have an eating disorder, but I could still connect with so many of the underlying like principles, the things that drove my eating disorder, perfectionism. In the title, I talk about worthiness, and so much,
Mhm.
there was so much disconnection from self, because so much of everything I did became rooted in what does my coach want me to do? What will make me liked, loved? And you're so unconscious to it, as you're growing and developing. And then the shame, the fixed identity, for me it was being an athlete, that can happen with an artist, that can happen with, a high achieving sales associate, anybody can. These are common human experiences, feelings, and how they manifest, whether it's an eating disorder or gambling addiction or alcoholism, right? When we don't have those good coping behaviors and understanding of what's going on. And so yeah, it's just that shared human struggle. But also on the other side of that, getting to the other side and giving hope. And that was the biggest thing, was like, if
Mhm.
someone picks up this book and feels less alone and has hope to, get the support and help they need, then it's all worth it.
Thank you so much for saying that, because that's always something that, especially in the topic of eating disorders, kind of gets me, is when people are saying, like, you're not alone. It's like, correct, you're not. And also, we don't want you all to just not be alone together in this world of an eating disorder that's not good, that's not thriving, that's not your fullest potential, that's not the life that you can live, and that's not fulfillment. So it's like, you're not alone. And also, here are the stories of the people who have gotten themselves out of that situation. And you can be that person too. You don't have to be alone in your recovery, right? So it's good to know you're not alone in feeling this way, but we want to give hope that you do not have to feel this way forever. You do not have to experience this forever, and kind of get yourself to a different place. Another thing you mentioned too, people have resonated with your book who maybe aren't even athletes or don't even have eating disorders. I think this is so huge too, that even if you're an athlete who doesn't have an eating disorder, I think reading the book is really powerful, because so many athletes have the same mindset or thoughts about, like, food, weight, performance, value. And maybe somebody doesn't have an eating disorder, but they can still be like, oh, I think that too. Oh, I've
100%.
thought that way before. There are many points in your book where I was like, yeah, I've had that thought. Oh, yeah, I've had that thought. And so maybe I wasn't in the same place exactly physically or mentally, but we can say, oh, wow, we can kind of start to identify that's why that's a dangerous topic. That's why basing your worthiness on performance or on your body weight is a concern. This is why it's so important to fight against those thoughts, because how easily this can happen.
Right. And I think in the world of sports, definitely, I was originally a team sport athlete all through high school. And then in my early 20s, as I transitioned out of college sports, is when I got into endurance racing, specifically triathlon. And, one of the biggest myths that I think science is finally crushing, is that, you have to be light, you have to be as skinny as you can to run fast. The lighter
Mhm.
you are, the faster you will be. And now we've seen a total metamorphosis in the top athletes. They're strong, they're carrying muscle, and they're faster than ever. So I've seen
Mhm.
that transition over the last, I would say, I don't know what you think, but probably especially the last handful, like 5 years or so. But definitely, that was the thing. How much weight can you lose before you start to lose power on your bike? And, and also, I definitely competed at a high level of age group sports, but at the end of the day, it was high level amateur sport, and my health, was severely being compromised. I think I lived for a decade with red S and, amenorrhea and all the, so I wanted to bring awareness to these things too, that it's not okay, right? At no point do we need to be compromising our health, for performance. It's not even necessary. But just like how severe and how quickly these things can happen. And I think in the general public, we're still so image focused. And, most of the time, the leanest and the fittest that I looked was also when I was my sickest. And I would
Yeah.
get nothing but continued praise. I think we're so quick to see someone lose weight and we congratulate them. And, I definitely wanted I wanted to teach people that that's not always a good thing. And that was, I did get that feedback as well. And I've had friends and patients who have read the book and come back to me and said like, oh my gosh, I remember coming in for an appointment and commenting on how great you looked. And that was the time that this was going on, and it's not done intentionally, right? But
No.
this is the whole reason to start the conversation, right? Because it
Sure.
wasn't helpful.
And no, there's no person to blame. There's nobody, it's not their fault, right? But yeah, let's start this conversation so that we can all learn and be more aware. We all make mistakes. We've all said the wrong thing before. We've all done that. And so it's bringing awareness so that maybe they, will make different comments or no comments at all regarding
Absolutely.
weight,
No
body.
comments at all. And I have learned that as
Really, yeah.
well, being a chiropractor that works with women in postpartum. It's just about getting your function back, getting,
Mhm.
feeling, sleeping well, moving well. How do you feel? Not about how you look, because that can make or break that transition.
Yeah.
And then even with our kids, changing this conversation and just getting away from how we look at all. It really doesn't matter when for the most part, there are extremes. But what we're talking about, when you're looking at health in this less than 5%, we're talking about athletes, the image does not equate health.
Mm-mm. Yeah. It really is such a challenge. I want our listeners to hear this, to challenge yourself to not make body comments. It's hard. I actually caught myself saying something the other day. I was at the gym. And so this is coming from somebody who's very aware. Don't make comments about body or appearance or whatever, right? Like I'm very aware. I'm very good at this is what I do. And I'm at the gym and I was wearing this outfit. I was wearing a blue spandex and a white like top that was like a sports top, right? It wasn't like a t-shirt, it was a sports top. And there was another woman wearing like almost the exact same outfit. So I just decided to be friendly. I said, "Oh, you got the memo. You're wearing the same outfit. It's blue spandex day." And there was another woman like right there. And I kind of turned to her. I said, "You didn't get the memo. Mondays are for blue spandex." And she laughed and joked. And then she was like, I do have blue spandex, but they don't fit anymore. That's what happens when you get pregnant. And so she was pregnant. And I spoke, I didn't make a comment about that because I'm very careful not to even say comments about that. But then I said, "No." I said, "You look great anyways." And I said that. And it was like, as the words were leaving my mouth,
Yeah,
I kind of realized I'm like, well, I gave her a compliment, but also like, this is where you can I just made a body comment about you look great. And I said, anyways, like in this weird way. And I'm like, everything's fine. Everybody moved on. But I spent the next 5 minutes doing squats, being like, why did I say that?
yeah,
Because what does the anyways mean? With being,
yeah.
I don't know. I was mad at myself for saying it. So here I am, a professional who's super aware, and it's still such a challenge. These things just fly out of our mouths sometimes to say, you look great, or have you lost weight, or wow, you're getting lean, or,
Absolutely.
if somebody's pregnant or postpartum, well, you look great. And it's like, why is it shouldn't be about that. And it wasn't about that. My
Of course. Yeah.
offhanded conversation it was, I don't even know her, but that's where it's like, but that's the problem. I don't know her. I don't know what's going on in her head. Maybe she was feeling self-conscious that she doesn't fit her blue leggings anymore. You know, it's so hard not to make comments. And
Absolutely.
so it is a challenge. It is a challenge. You have to really challenge yourself. And you challenge yourself just like me. You might fail and slip up and say a comment, but I bet you'll say a lot less body comments than you would have if you're not aware at all.
Yeah. And for someone with an eating disorder, that is, I mean, what I learned from my therapist and my dietitian was like, there's the eating disorder part of your brain, and then there's actually you. And those comments were just like giving that eating disorder brain like so much fuel. And,
Mhm.
and so it's just, I think some of this is across the board for everyone, but I also wanted people to understand the struggle of like me having to, it's still forever. I will always hear that sort of ED brain. It's just I can turn the volume way down now. But
Mm,
there are certain triggers, and that's definitely one of them. I still have people come in and still make comments about my body all the time. And my actual logical reasoning, knows, thank you and move on. And,
yeah.
there's so much more value to me than how I look. But it is, and it was so much a challenge for so long. That eating disorder wanted to hear those comments, and it would just continue to
Wow.
drive it.
Yeah. I appreciate what you just said about how, when you receive these comments now, you've learned your rational brain says thank you and move on. And this is actually something I used to teach. I used to do like a little workshop with my clients of responses because we can never control what other people say. You can't control that. So as much as we want to bring awareness to having people make less body comments, at the end of the day, we're never going to be able to control what other people say, nor should we. And so somebody says a comment, you look great. And it's feeding the eating disorder, but in order to not feed the eating disorder, you just say, thank you, move on.
Yeah.
They meant it as a compliment. Res- just acknowledge they said something to you. Thank you, move on. And if somebody says something that triggers you in a different way, that's hurtful, this is rude, like, let's say it's an area of your body you're self-conscious about. Somebody makes a comment, like, let's say you don't like this is what so I'm sharing this personally. This is a personal thing that my very muscular legs, which are a good thing, muscular and powerful, but used to receive comments and I internalize that negatively. So if somebody would say like, "Oh, someone did legs today," to me that was a negative. And anyways, so
I could resonate.
if you ever yes, if you ever internalize something as a negative, you can literally as a response say, "I don't appreciate comments about my body." So those are two quick, like, I call these comeback statements. You say, "Thank you, move on," or you say, "I don't appreciate comments about my body," and you move on. Like, no further discussion, end the discussion, but at least you've said your piece that, "I don't like that. I don't like being commented on my body." So, little tips for our audience. Do you have anything to add to that? You do a thank you and move on. Anything to
Yeah,
add?
the a personal struggle for me is I'm always overthinking 10 steps ahead and just knowing, like, first of all, I know that it is a compliment from the other person. And there are times where I want to let them know that made me uncomfortable, but then I'm like, am I going to make them uncomfortable? And then it goes down that rabbit hole. And so I am
Yeah.
just in the place right now where it's like, thank you and move on. But
Mhm.
being another health practitioner and being aware, I really slowly want to get to that place where I can own that comment that,
Yeah.
just because
Not
again, I think it
appreciated.
helps change the conversation.
It does. Yeah. And that's why I keep it short and sweet of, comments on my body aren't appreciated. Because you're not saying, like, you're mean, it's just don't comment on my body. You can go do it to someone else. Not that they should, but, like, it's standing up for yourself. It doesn't mean you have to do a TED Talk on this now,
Right.
right? So, it's that's although, you did write a book about it, so not this specifically, but yeah, just let them know because then they won't say it to you again, is the point, right? Yeah, so and it's something that once again, we have to practice it. Like, I used to have my clients, we would do it live on a group call. We'd practice our comeback statements, and I would be the one I would say something ridiculous to them, and they'd have to do a comeback to me,
That's a great
or
idea.
and it is, or practice it in your mirror. That's
Yeah.
another thing too. You have to practice it because you can practice it and then it's gonna hit you randomly, Tuesday at 9:30 in the morning. Just like somebody's gonna say something and it's gonna come out of nowhere. And you wanna be able to just like repeat it like you would your favorite quote or mantra, you know?
Own it.
So own it. Yes, own it. So let's backtrack just a little bit. So you mentioned you were always a team sport athlete and then you got into endurance sports. And again, your book, we want people to read the book, but you do mention that eating disorder probably it started quite young for you. And so sports wasn't necessarily like the only reason for it, but it certainly enabled it. And when do you think and your book outlines too with a quite dramatic story because it is dramatic of when this all kinda went downhill, where sports, because this is what we always say, it's very difficult to be a high level athlete with an eating disorder because you're not nourishing and caring for your body. And so your body will in certain areas shut down or fail. And so, your book outlines when that happened for you. Was that happening all along? Or because I just want to paint a realistic picture for people, like, because this is a struggle with athletes, is sometimes we can go a long time and it
Mhm.
just kind of sports, we're still performing well, we're still doing good. And this is why it can go on for so long for so many people because they're like, it's not inhibiting me.
Absolutely. So I think it was probably about 15, 16 where the behaviors, the thoughts started to settle in. And I was already a competitive athlete looking into the possibility of college scholarships and things like that. So when I first started experimenting with restriction, and it got to the point where think I tell the story, but I passed out in gym class playing, grew up in Canada. So we were playing hockey and I had a softball game later that day. And to me, it would be the end of the world to not be able to play. So in some ways, I think sports kept my eating disorder from going extremely off the rails. I did not go, days without eating. It wasn't this typical representation of what we think about when there's anorexia. And there was definitely a lot of restriction. But as soon as it became symptoms of not fueling my body became too much, I would back it
Mm,
off because I wanted to be able to perform. And
mhm,
so I learned very well, or my eating disorder learned very well how to do this dance. And it was a push pull, and not drastic enough that I still couldn't have my body do all of these incredibly human, you know, performance. But over time, like I said, like I couldn't stand up without having to take a second because I would be having stars and dizziness, and I
mhm,
just started to accept that as normal, but if there was ever a day where I felt so weak, or "No, I need a little bit more that day," and as soon as my symptoms would improve, I would go back to this dance of how much can I restrict, you know, to the point where it doesn't really affect my performance. And, there would be times where it really would. And again, it really was this inner, quiet, silent battle amongst myself, which was torturous in its own right.
mhm,
But over the span of a couple of decades, what I speak to, kind of like the big turning point in the story is, despite, years of not having a period, having a hard time getting pregnant, all of those things were like just never enough to really stop me in my tracks. I always knew there was a little bit of a problem there. And my last Ironman that I had started training for, I did seek the counsel finally again of a therapist and a dietitian. And we danced, that dance. I was nervous of things, getting too out of hand. And, basically, it really got to that point anyway. I was 36 hours from an Ironman race, and symptoms of chest pain and breathlessness and not recovering. I
mm.
did just 36 hours before that race, got an EKG, failed that multiple times, talked to a cardiologist, and, he basically just said, like, I can't confidently say that if you start this race, you will finish it. And so that was, at the time my son was almost 6, and it was just, clear, just not worth it. And I had a choice. I made the right choice.
You
But
did.
as any athlete would understand, a very, very hard choice. I
Yeah.
felt it, up until like those last 2 weeks, I felt the fittest in my life. I thought that I had a good chance of, qualifying for Kona, and, but I overtrained, I undernourished, and it caught up with me just before that race. And I'm glad it did, and it didn't end up, being in the race.
Fans, I'm pausing the conversation again to check in on you. Are you concerned that you have REDS? That's relative energy deficiency in sport. It's a syndrome of not ideal health consequences and performance consequences that all stem from the idea that you're not fueling optimally or fueling enough for your sport needs. I've become an expert in this over the years because, unfortunately, a lot of female athletes struggle with this. We have research that shows sometimes up to 90% of female athletes might be suffering from at least one of the side effects of REDS. Other research says that up to 45% of female athletes are struggling with disordered eating. These are big statistical numbers, and I don't like it. I'm here to help you become fierce, fit, and fueled. So first and foremost, head to lindseycortes.com/REDS to learn more about REDS, listen to past podcast episodes, and take our free REDS quiz to see if this might be a concern for you. From there, I've got 3 ways to help you. 1, download the REDS Recovery Guide and start taking action right away. 2, join our REDS Recovery membership. For a very affordable $15 a month, you will have access to me as a sports dietitian to educate and empower you to fuel better. We meet once a week for live calls, Q&A. You have access to the recordings if you can't join live, and a community group chat to support, encourage, and motivate you along the way to fuel fiercely. Last, spots are limited for one-on-one help, but I can help you personally through one-on-one coaching, be it my Fast Track program, the Female Athlete System of Transformation, or perhaps Fuel School, depending on your age. All of that is on my website, lindseycortes.com. But because one-on-one spots are limited, I really want to encourage you to join the REDS Recovery membership. We live in a world where it's very easy to just pop online, read an article, listen to a podcast, and I think we do a decent job at getting information out there, but we all need someone to talk to and really ask those personal questions, and also be open and honest in a community that's going to support you in your fueling needs and goals. And that's exactly what this membership is. So only $15 a month. We meet once a week, and you will be provided with so much education and empowerment and support. I know you won't regret joining. Head to lindseycortes.com/REDS, and there you will see the REDS Recovery membership that you can join, and join us this week. It's time for you to be fierce, fit, and fueled. Right. Because that's what that scary risk of your physiological health taking a steep decline, and which is a very real risk of undernourishing your body and a real risk of these eating disorders. And I think what I really want people to hear is that you were doing the dance for so long, like you said, of just eating just enough so you could still participate and be good. But it was never fully enough where your body felt safe or where your mind was free of the disorder either. So years, decade or more of this torturous dance in the physical and mental health with the eating disorder. And sure, you survived those years. There's such a difference between surviving and thriving. And ultimately it did reach that moment where this was going to break you.
And on the other side, of a few really tough years of working really hard in treatment, to be on the other side and know you mentioned thriving, to be able to go work out and push my body really hard and feel good, it is unbelievable. It's like I forgot what it felt like to feel good. It probably had been since I was a young teenager that I didn't have symptoms of distress. Like I was, being a chiropractor and working in functional medicine, I was trying to figure out my brain fog with all of these advanced tests and things like that. And all I really needed to do was nourish my brain, nourish my body. And years later, it's like finally after, a year of eating well, everything went away. I don't struggle with anything. And all I needed was to eat enough.
Isn't that magic?
It is. And I have learned, being in this field that, again, going back to you don't have to be a high performing athlete. I see it in women that, are trying to be moms, trying to work hard at their careers, trying to, again, still look good, feel good, exercise. And all of that takes so much energy demand. it doesn't even have to be intentional. I really think that undernourishing, underfueling can really cause a plethora of these issues. And we, sometimes it is perimenopause. Sometimes, there is something going on, but I think a lot of times this gets overlooked.
Yes, yes. Oh, I hear you on that. We don't want to discredit that other like issues do exist. Like some people
Yes,
really are gluten intolerant. So, like okay,
totally.
but some people really do have SIBO. Some people really do have sleep apnea. All these things that affect your health, perimenopause, yes, but then there's also like you're just not eating enough to feel good. And my sister's going to laugh cuz she started I've had this podcast for like 5 years and she just started listening like 2 months ago, but she cracks up every time I bring her up now. I drop, personal stories and family stories, but I've had this conversation with my sister so many times over the years because she's a busy mom of 3 young boys and she likes it. She's active. She was a great high school athlete. She's been run marathons. She's been active her whole life. And, sometimes she's just like, oh, my brain fog. Oh, my gut health. And it's like, did you eat today? No, I didn't have time. I'm so busy
Yeah.
with the kids. It's like, yeah, you need to eat more. You need to eat. You need to, make a smoothie, have a pre-made smoothie for breakfast. You need to eat more than your kid's snack bar, for lunch because you're so busy with them. And it is amazing how we just need to nourish and it's hard. I get that it's hard. So I'm saying, oh, it's magic. Just eat more. You'll feel so much better. But we do understand that it's hard. I'm a dietitian. I understand that it's hard to implement these things. You and your story, everything you went through, it's hard to change the way your brain thinks. After 15 plus years of thinking one way, it's not just like, okay, I'll eat more,
Yeah,
problem solved. The results are magic, but the process it's certainly not as simple as taking a
absolutely
magic pill
not.
or just eating more food. It takes a lot to rewire your brain to think differently and then to get the systems in place in your life where you can follow through on the behaviors needed, right? Of what does that mean to really eat more?
Yeah.
I mean, it starts with going to the grocery store and buying more. And this is a conversation I had with clients recently about her anxiety at the grocery store. It's like, okay, I want to eat more. Wait, we need to backtrack that. It's not just what's on my plate. It's what did I cook? Well, what did I cook is based on what's in my pantry. What's in my pantry is based on when I went to the store and I'm having anxiety in the grocery store. And we have to, so it's a process to get there. But again, we're giving you hope. Dr. Deme just went through this process. She's on the other side now. And she's like, oh my gosh, I feel good. I can work out. I feel strong. I feel powerful. I'm not having these things that I danced with over the past 15 plus years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to highlight, and I do so much in the book. So many years, I think I tried to do it on my own also. And
Mm.
when you have a disordered thought process around food, body image, all those things, it's like you said, it's not as easy to just say, okay, I'll eat more now. And, so working with someone like yourself, sort of for me, the certified eating disorder dietitian and therapist was I would not be here. Could not have done it without them. I tried for a long time. There were definitely moments where I had a problem and I I needed the counsel, I needed the support, I needed the guidance. There was so much skill building, rewiring, thinking, so much involved. And yeah, I value so much what you do. And yeah, just that was probably my biggest, takeaway was don't do it alone. Get the support you deserve and need.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was said really well that it because so many people get frustrated with that phrase of just eat more, and the reason we're frustrated is because there is more to it. And so having help along the way, directing you on what to do next, those little baby steps that eventually amount to, you know, overcoming a huge obstacle, but it takes baby steps to overcome the huge obstacle. So I mean my sports like references and sports mind, I'm like, yeah, you can't just jump over a hurdle. You have to run up to it first. You have to take each step until you get over that hurdle. So baby steps to get there, and you need people in place to help you and the accountability because there's going to be a time when you fall.
Oh,
over the hurdle.
yes. Oh, yes.
Gonna happen. And when you stand up, suddenly you start running the wrong direction. Like you need that accountability for that person to, or people, team to get you back on the right track. So, could we share just for listeners? So, you mentioned a therapist, like a mental health therapist, want
Yes.
to specify here, and a dietitian who was an eating disorder specialist. Anybody else part of your team or
Um,
accountability team or support system?
I mean, I had my coaches along the way, but really most importantly was my counselor and my dietitian. And then my partner towards the end. Definitely, I didn't, I talk about my personal details of my life definitely affecting things as well. And being in a relationship with someone that could see the struggle, understand it, support it in ways that I needed in a loving way was definitely groundbreaking. And it is not easy. It was not easy being with me during those times. And so that support is just so appreciated. And, I've had parents reach out to me with, kids that they think are struggling, partners, siblings, and it is not easy work. And, I think that's the other thing too. Again, more and more awareness, more conversation around what this looks like, how to help and support one another is tremendous. But for me, those two were, I call them my dream team in the book. Again, sports references, because the other thing that I have found, like being a health professional, there's even a lot of health professionals don't understand the nuance of eating disorders and how they show up. I mean, even the example of, a lot of what I wanted to argue was my, my failing EKG was athlete's heart, you know, but there are ways to differentiate whether that is an efficient heart or whether that is an exhausted, weakening heart, and finding the right, you know, cardiovascular doctor, your regular doctor. It takes some searching for people to understand the specifics. So yeah, definitely need a team.
Absolutely. And I want to shift gears a little bit because, yeah, you're in a health field. You're working as a chiropractor. So you're helping people transform their health by helping them with movement and alleviating pain and helping their bodies become more functional and move in the way that they want. And you also do specialize in prenatal and postpartum,
Yeah.
right? So you've got that specialist touch with like the female anatomy and what a woman can go through throughout her lifetime. And so I'm just curious to hear like how your personal journey, you've kind of already mentioned a little bit about kind of not making comments to your patients, like body comments, which is good practice for anybody and who's like hands-on, first of all, or assessing the human body. It's always looking at it from a scientific or functional viewpoint. So that's just good kind of like bedside manners. But I'm wondering how you feel that your personal journey might have transformed or is still transforming your practice as a health professional yourself.
Absolutely. It's always evolving. I've always been fascinated by how the body moves and performs. And, now more than ever, finally, I think the complexity of women's bodies and how we work, like, is finally being looked at differently as far as research with hormones and everything and testing. And so I did not ever plan to specialize in prenatal, postpartum, pediatric. I was going to chiropractic school to work on athletes, and that was
Mm,
it. And really, it was a combination of a super passionate, amazing professor at the college who taught that course, in combination with myself at the time trying to get pregnant, not being able to. And so just, it's funny, athletes, when we decide we want something, how we can like nose dive into figuring things out. And so, as a chiropractor, looking mechanistically about how the body is moving and performing, but that is also when I started to see a functional medicine practitioner, and then I ended up studying that as well when I graduated chiropractic school. and adding, that in, just wanting to learn as much as I could. But what I found and what I really struggled with is, like you had just said, there truly are people that have, thyroid, hypothyroidism, SIBO, a gluten intolerance, all of these things. But what I would find is, while I was working with clients and helping them, I had a hard time separating myself from trying these things. So again, this is where like that eating disorder would just creep in. And so, you look at someone with an autoimmune condition and you want to try the autoimmune paleo diet, which is extremely restrictive, difficult diet. And in extreme cases, like, the evidence does support, say, for example, Hashimoto's, like removing gluten. And a lot of this stuff
Hmm.
was preliminary, but here I am, like, well, if this can reduce like looking for any excuse to do the same. Well, if
Right.
this can reduce inflammation for this condition, well, why couldn't it reduce? And we all have inflammation. So I would find myself putting myself, and or just from the perspective of, well, if I'm a practitioner and I'm recommending this, I need to try this.
I
And
should try it too.
so,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
definitely did the 5-day water fast and the intermittent
Wow.
fasting. And I knew I love functional medicine, and I think it's, I've had to step away from it personally and refer that on to fellow colleagues, and I still love
Yeah.
learning about it, but it was too triggering. And then also, when I would have a client come in, and you can recognize the symptoms of an eating disorder when you know them so well. And I just couldn't separate myself. And I felt a lot of shame around that. And I felt it was
Mm.
unprofessional. And so, that's an example of something that I had in my practice that I moved away from. So I still, I'm
Not only, I just
mostly
want to compliment you that not only was that wise for you, but that was the wisest thing for you to do for all your patients as well.
100%.
So I want to really commend you
Thank
for
you.
recognizing that.
Thank you. And I absolutely love, love, love what I do. It's, I
Hmm.
mean, one of those people that wake up excited to go to work on a Monday. And
Yeah.
so, and so, it's ever evolving. And, at this point in time, doing a lot of hands-on treatment and then also functional movement, which is just so joyful for me. I mean, I am an athlete. I gravitated towards it from such a young age. There's still a lot of joy. We know there's a lot of goodness in sport and exercise. I think more and
Hmm.
more we're learning how important exercise and building muscle is as we age. I'm 40, I'm about to be 41, just looking at women's hormone health, everything. So now I feel so much better, so grounded, and so much better able to help and serve and guide my patients in these areas. And also being able, if I do pick up on some disordered behavior, I definitely am at a place now where I think I can recognize it, have a conversation. Whereas before it would trigger me. I wouldn't want to say anything. I'm just going to ignore this, and again, so not helping them, not helping myself. So yeah,
I love it. I love to just that recognizing your passion for movement and how the body functions. And it's a joy for you to go to work, but it's also what a joy to like spread that to other people, help other people be strong and move their bodies and find the joy in movement again too. And I think that's just kind of like an underlying message of for athletes that maybe experience bumps in the road in their athletic journey or switch gears or take time off or get injured or go through recovery, whatever it might be, that you can still participate in athletics and the joys of movement and how the body functions, even if you're not doing an Ironman this month. You're still getting the joy out of the amazing human body and all it does physically in other ways.
absolutely. And I really took, in the book, I talk about taking a month off of exercise, which I really thought I would never do. And it ended up, I think, being, for me personally, with, fixed identity as an athlete, that was such a huge important part of my recovery is needing to learn how to live without
Mhm.
exercising every day, twice a day, whatever it was. And then I continued. I remember being so angry with my team and just like the coming back to exercise after that was even slow. I was like, that black or white thinking, like, well, I'd rather not do anything. It was so slow. But there was
Yeah.
so much learning in that process and ended up being like a year of baby stepping back in, and I'm just in the last couple of months really back to a place where I'm moving weight and running and feeling like an athlete again. But again, like not feeling like for any reason that I need to do more and just enjoying it, being in it, feeling strong, feeling powerful, and then being able to function the rest of the day. It's amazing.
Little hint that I like to remind people, you know you're well fueled when you crush a workout and you go crush the rest of your life and you feel good the rest of your day. And you're dancing in the
Absolutely.
shower and you're being a rock star at work and you still have energy to, you know, go up the stairs without being exhausted at 6 o'clock at night, right? That's that's one sign of being really well fueled. Because for so many people, it's like, oh, we can go crush a workout, but then we're dragging the rest of the day. You
That
want to
was
be able
me.
to do both.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and not providing the best care to my patients, not being able to play with my kid. Like these are things that are
Yeah.
just so much more important.
Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Demi, thank you so much for sharing your story. And we want to point people, we'll include links in the show notes, your book, The Weight of
Winning.
Winning.
Yep.
Thank you. The Weight of
Um,
Winning. You want to show the camera for
yeah,
our
sure.
YouTube video? The Weight of Winning.
Winning.
And that's you on the cover. Love it.
Yes. I if I
Um,
can, Lindsay, I really wanted to thank you. We didn't get a chance to talk about it, but how we connected, I reached out to you because throughout my recovery journey, I listened to your podcast. And there was a time in the beginning where I constantly the story I told myself and I told my team was you don't understand me because you aren't athletes. And that was an obstacle for me for so long. And I would
mhm,
listen to your podcast and I would, basically like learn a lot of things and hear a lot of the same things that they were telling me, but I wasn't ready to hear it from them. I could hear it from you. So I'm so grateful for your work and your podcast. And through listening to your podcast, I connected to other professionals. And so you have also been a part of my journey. And so I absolutely want to thank you. I continue to share your podcast, and your podcast has also evolved quite a bit. And I think in a really amazing way. I think it's expanding, women's health in general. And I'm so grateful that you allowed me to come on and be a part of it today.
Thank you so much. It means a lot to hear that. And that is my hope for this podcast. Like my business has evolved and where I don't have one on one clients like I used to, but maybe people can still get help, whether it be, yeah, listening to the words that, maybe something's not getting through with your family, your coach, whatever, but whether it's me or the other guests on the show to feel heard, understood, and then have some resources. So I'm so glad I feel that makes me thank you for sharing that. That makes me feel really good that something good is coming out of this. And yeah, I agree with you. I have been trying to transform this slowly, transform the not maybe transform isn't the word. Evolve. You use the word evolve. I do want to broaden. I focus this podcast so much on well, female athlete nutrition is a niche topic to begin with, but I think broadening who is an athlete, and broadening that it's not just nutrition, it's health, mental health. And, I had a skin health expert on over the summer, like just like it's more than just nutrition, right? So yeah, broadening more women's health topics because that in female athletes, that it's like, we're part of that. Let's have those broader conversations. So thank you for those words. And do you want to finish this podcast with our rapid fire fun questions?
Sure, let's try it.
If there's one food you could eat every single day for the rest of your life and never be sick of it, what would it be?
Cereal, like specifically frosted mini wheats.
Ooh. All right. You're one of those girls.
which I didn't allow myself for probably 10 years. So,
Oh, you need the frosted. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. What is your favorite sport to participate in?
Oh, that's so tough. I'm a huge all around sports fanatic. I'd like to get into tennis next. Um, Participate, gosh, so hard. As a fan, I would have to say hockey, but I don't know. I've never been able to nail it down. I'll hop in and play anything.
There you go. So you're the girl that, yeah, just like in gym class, it's like, pick me. I'm in. I'm
Yes.
playing.
Yes.
Doesn't
I
matter
used
what
to
the game
like
is.
my first car in high school was just filled with a soccer ball, a basketball, a volleyball, a glove. So I was literally prepared to play anything.
Ready for it all. Awesome. Which is maybe why you you got into endurance sports, but triathlons, it's like, oh, I can do 3 sports in one.
Yeah.
The more you can do, the better. And then you mentioned as a fan, hockey is your number one, a true Canadian.
Yes.
Amazing. Even though you live in Texas now, so that's rough, but
Well, the Stars are pretty good, but I'm a diehard Red Wings fan. So yeah, it is rough.
yeah. Yeah. Final question. If there's a female athlete out there that you want to give a shout out to for being a role model or an inspiration, who would that be and why?
Oof. That's also tough. Growing up, I absolutely loved Lisa Leslie. Just being a huge basketball player, that was my big thing as a kid. So many. Marion Jones, I was a huge fan of. It's too hard
Me
to
too.
pick. Gosh. But I would say most recently, not the huge professionals. I think the peers that I learned so much from, some teammates, training, some that I'm able to share this struggle with. Probably those are probably the biggest people in my life are the teammates that I was able to lean on and learn from and that built me up and supported me in getting through this.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Dr. Deme, and congratulations on publishing your memoir. That's a huge deal.
Thank you.
And we hope people will go take a listen and take a read.
Awesome. Yes.
Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Please help spread the message of empowering female athletes to be fierce, fit, and fueled by giving this podcast a 5-star review and leaving a comment. You can also help more female athletes by sending this episode to a friend. Head to lindseycortes.com for more resources, information, more episodes, ways to work together, downloadable guides, and ebooks. And if you're interested in becoming a guest on the show or have a guest suggestion, head to lindseycortes.com/podcast, and there's a form for you to fill out to get on the show. Hey, there's more resources on my YouTube channel, Female Athlete Nutrition, Instagram at female.athlete.nutrition, and private Facebook group, Female Athlete Nutrition. I think you get the point. I'm here to support female athletes by fueling better and becoming fierce, fit, and fueled. Most importantly, if you need help, reach out. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next show.